Hi, welcome back. We are back to talking about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and in this video we're going to be looking at a monk. I'm biased towards the monk. I always like monks. I like wizards as well, but I have a thing for the monk, mainly because I guess I've had a lot of involvement in the martial arts and it's one of my favourite classes to play. Therefore, I will tend to be favourable to a monk, even though a lot of people don't really like them. Managed to get a thumbs down already. Well done. Oh gosh, didn't have to do very much at all. Okay, so I'm going to do my sound check. I will put the start time for this video down in the description for those people who want to sort of skip past all of this and watch the live stream at a later date. I will leave the live stream public until I produce the edited version. Once I've done the edited version, it will go public and the live stream will go unlisted. To actually get access to the live streams, well, guess what? The best way to do that, if you want to get access to them later, is to make sure you subscribe, hit the bell button and turn on your notifications. Otherwise, my patrons always get access to my live streams and my notes for any of the videos that I make, plus a little bit of extra stuff as well. Just so that you know, just have a drink of water. Okay, so you'll let me know if the sound is terrible or there's problems with the video, and I will sort that out now while I can. Hi Joe Smiley, how's it going? Hi Fred Hubber. Is here. Just heard you say someone's thumbs down already. Yep, that's exactly right. That happened. And we've got Eddie. Hi Eddie, how's it going Eddie? Okay. Alright, so sound seems to be working alright, so we'll pop that out. Now for those of you who are not familiar with my live streams, normally what I do is I present everything first using my notes. I read from my notes, and then I'm using slides the whole time. You won't see my face, 'cause it just makes it easier for me to do. And then at the end, we'll go back to the webcam, and then I will discuss with you, do any Q&As, you can give feedback. We can talk about something other than Way of the Mercy Monk. I'm happy to talk about other things. That's not a problem. Sheila, how's it going, Sheila? Gonna play multi-class Twilight Cleric and Way of Mercy Monk next. Oh my gosh. So the Twilight Cleric, that Twilight domain, is probably never going to wind up in my game. It is definitely, it is so broken. I don't think people realize just how difficult it will be to manage that kind of class. But if you're playing Adventurers League, they can't do that. So you can play it and kill everything before it even gets a chance to notice that you're there. So you'll do very well. Okay. I note the wife is here playing. Okay, that's all right. That's cool. Yeah, it is Tasha's Book of OP, but that's basically, look, these videos are for players so you know how to run the class and get a good idea. Yes, Sheila, I bet that was the idea, exactly. Kanoko, how's it going? So these videos are for players so they know how to play the class and use it. But I'm also hoping that Dungeon Masters will see how this class is working, and therefore you can prepare yourself for it. I will do follow-up videos on each of the subclasses at some point to sort of explain some of the things you probably don't want to do and some of the things you do want to do. But my advice to you is get ready. Grab a drink, grab some food, get comfortable, and we will slide into this topic and I will cover it as best I can. I have about 4 pages, which I know is ridiculous because, you know, there shouldn't be that much to this particular subclass, but like everything, I did my research and I discovered a few things that other people didn't obviously realize. So I'm going to make sure that I point them out. And of course, because I'm a YouTuber, I leave them to last. So they'll be at the end of the video and live stream for those of you who are wondering. Okay? All right, so get comfortable and let's do this. Let's talk about the monk. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And today's topic is the monk, one of my favourite classes. So I'm always excited to see what they have produced for the monk. I am biased. I do admit it, I am definitely biased. So the topic is exploiting Way of Mercy Monk in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And I know that's a provocative title, but that's exactly what this video is all about. It's about getting the most out of that particular class and doing the sorts of things you'd like to do with it. I'm going to cover all of the material. You will see content from the book. I will explain everything, and then I will give you my analysis about what you should do with those class features so that you can get the most out of them, and to make sure you understand where it stands, because this particular monk is extremely powerful for a monk. So let's go through it. This subclass is by far, in my opinion, one of the best monks in the game, but it's not just that. It also changes the way that a monk class works in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It also steps on the toes of many of the other subclasses or classes in the game. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, but it absolutely does do that. A lot of people, when they look at the flavor for this, and this is what the designers have told us, is the flavor of this monk is suggested as a plague doctor due to the odd or strange mask feature they have. But I would suggest to you that that's actually not where they got the idea from. I think they got the idea from somewhere else. And if you've watched plenty of kung fu movies or karate movies, or watched Jet Li, or know anything about Eastern culture, then you'll know that this monk has much more in common with the Eastern doctors of China and the ones that studied kung fu, because often Eastern doctors in China would also study kung fu. In fact, many people were studying kung fu. It didn't matter who you were. And there's a particular character that I think it represents, and that is Wong Fei Hong. Okay, local folk hero, a physician, and a master of kung fu who is renowned, well known throughout history. And I think that's where the Way of the Mercy monk came from. The only thing is they've put their own particular spin on it, which I don't particularly like, but we'll go over it anyway. So monks of the Way of Mercy learn to manipulate the life force of others to bring aid to those who need it. They are wandering physicians to the poor and hurt. However, to those beyond their help, they bring a swift end as an act of mercy. This is the one part I don't really like that much. But then again, it's flavor, so you can change it. And it doesn't matter what my opinion is. It's only about what you care about. Those who follow the Way of Mercy might be members of a religious order, administering to the needs and making grim choices rooted in reality rather than idealism. Some might be gentle-voiced healers, beloved by the communities, while others might be masked bringers of macabre mercies. Well, what we're talking about is death. The walkers of this way usually don robes with deep cowls, and they often conceal their faces with masks, presenting themselves as the faceless bringers of life and death. So that is the flavour that the book in Tasha's gives you. But then again, as I said, you could change it to something else if you wanted to. The first couple of features we get are pretty impressive if you think in terms of I'm getting them at 3rd level and I get 3 of them. So I'll go through the first one. Implements of Mercy. This is at 3rd level, and you gain proficiency in insight and medicine skills. You're also proficient with the herbalism kit. You also gain a special mask, which you often wear when using your features of the subclass. You determine its appearance or generate it randomly by rolling on the merciful mask table. Okay, so let's have a look at this table really quickly. So the options that they have given you: raven, blank or white, a crying visage, a laughing visage, a skull, a butterfly, but frankly you could make up anything you liked. It didn't have to be this. One of the things it does not state is what happens if you lose your mask. How do you get another one? I know a lot of people won't really care about that sort of thing, but I thought I would at least mention it, since I'm sure somebody might be interested in that whole concept. First off, I would like to point out that the mask is kind of pointless. Any class could wear a mask. They can go and buy it from a shop, and they could use it to deceive their enemies in terms of making them think that they are a trained doctor, or concealing their appearance, or just trying to intimidate another creature. Okay, so masks aren't sort of something that another class couldn't use, but apparently this is supposed to be the touchstone for this class. I don't think that the mask needs to be something you are beholden to. You could ditch the mask. I know a lot of people don't like the concept of the mask. The other thing I'd like to point out is the proficiency in insight, medicine, and the herbalism kit punishes any kind of player who selects them at level 1, because you get these at level 3. So that's a big drag. Suddenly you've started your character off, and then the next thing you know, when they get to level 3, they are now proficient in insight, medicine, and the herbalism kit. Whereas I know a lot of players will want to do that from the very get-go in terms of how they construct their character. Another thing I'd like to point out is the medicine skill proficiency, or medicine skill itself, can just about be completely replaced by just buying a healer's kit for a lot of the features that it has available to you. It is very thematic, but there are some problems, I think, with regard to how this is implemented in your game and sort of the mechanics behind it. The extra skills are nice, okay? Getting 2 skills and a tool proficiency, those are nice. But if you already have them, you should be able to, or be allowed to, select an alternative if you've already selected these. But it says nothing about this in the book, so you're now beholden to your dungeon master to see if they will allow you to do this. I think that's a bit of a drag. But then again, I'm sure that a lot of you are not necessarily going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League. Anyway, you'll be playing in your own games. Okay, the next feature. Hand of Healing. You get this at 3rd level. Your mystical touch can now mend wounds. As an action, you can spend 1 key, should be called chi, really, because that's really what it is. 1 key point to touch a creature and restore a number of hit points equal to a roll of your martial arts die, which will change over time, plus your wisdom modifier. Okay, that's a pretty good feature. I like this, and you don't normally see this sort of thing in any kind of monk, right? When you used your flurry of blows, though, you can replace one of your unarmed strikes with the use of this feature without spending a key point for the healing. That's actually a very important factor, because this now means you can use this in multiple locations rather than just one location. You can use this feature with your flurry of blows in combat to save your key points. That would be the smart thing to do, is to make sure you try to pump it out at that particular time. Of course, you don't have to do it that way. But you can, as it happens, you can also use it as a bonus action. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Flurry of blows is a bonus action. So essentially, in combat, you're using healing as a bonus action, and this is really rare. It's like using Healing Word or the Healing Word spell, but it's not at range. So that's a really strong feature. This is the only monk that can heal, which makes it a game changer for me. I frankly love the fact that they have based the monk very much what I think is an Eastern doctor, which is great. It's nice to see. The 3rd ability. Now, this is Hand of Harm. This is the go-to that a lot of people are going to be really gravitating towards, particularly because you do get it at 3rd level. Hand of Harm. You can use a key to inflict wounds. Okay, so you can do this. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to deal extra necrotic damage equal to 1 roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. You can use this feature only once per turn. Okay, so you can't pump it out all the time if you have multiple attacks and just sort of spam it in 1 turn if you really wanted to. But there are other times you can use it, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that, because I thought it was quite amusing that they put this feature in, and they've clearly specified that you could only use it once per turn to stop people supernovaing it in a particular turn. So what you're getting is extra damage by making an unarmed monk strike, and it's like doing a paladin smite, essentially. Okay, that's what you're essentially doing. It's a paladin smite. It may not be quite as powerful as your paladin smite, but it's still pretty effective. This is actually better than the Flurry of Blows ability because you don't have to worry about hitting the target. So if you have a choice between spending a key point on using your Hand of Harm, when you use your action to make an attack and then your bonus action using your martial arts, you're going to get 2 attacks, 2 chances to hit. If you hit, you use, of course, Hand of Harm, rather than going and spending your Flurry of Blows, okay, to make an attack, where there is a chance where you might actually miss. So it's always better to go with the guaranteed damage. And of course, you can apply your Hand of Harm to either the bonus action martial arts attack or the standard action attack. Okay, so you don't have to worry about hitting. That's the real key thing. Now, for those of you who were upset that you couldn't spam this thing during a turn, you can still supernova this little sucker, Hand of Harm, in one battle. Okay, and then take a short rest to get all of your key points back, because you get them back at the end of a short rest. Well, actually, I do believe it specifies 30 minutes of where you sort of focus and do some meditation. But it's probably going to be during a short rest as such, as far as I remember. Anyway, okay, so it's a really good feature, and guess what? It's going to get better. Trust me, it gets a lot better than that. This is quite unusual. You see this feature and you think, well, what's the deal with this 4th feature? Physician's Touch. At level 6, you get it. You can administer even greater cures with a touch. If you feel it's necessary, you can use your knowledge to cause harm. When you use your Hand of Healing on a creature, you can also end one disease or one of the following conditions afflicting the creature: blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. This is a big deal, because can you think, does a paladin get that level of option? It is actually there. You can use this. Like, how often can you use it? Well, it doesn't stipulate. There's no limitation. You could keep using it on and over and over and over again. So it's like being a paladin, essentially, removing disease and other conditions. It's a very good feature. It will only be, of course, circumstantial. When you use Hand of Harm on a creature, you can subject that creature to the poison condition until the end of your next turn. And this is actually really important, because what this means is not only can you shut down the rare times that a monster's special ability will apply disease or a condition to your character or another character, because you could do it on yourself, you could just punch yourself, okay, if you really wanted to get rid of the condition. But you can apply it, the poison condition, to a monster, and there's no saving throw. There's no mention of a saving throw to make the attack. Hand of Harm is going to work no matter what, because you only apply it to whatever strikes. It's actually better than Stunning Strike, because Stunning Strike has a chance to fail. The other thing I'd like to point out is, yes, poison condition, there are lots of monsters that are resistant or immune to poison damage or the poison condition. Okay, and so therefore that might not work with them. But that doesn't matter, because if this doesn't work, then you just go with the Stunning Strike, okay, and you'll solve that problem. But it's really good to have a feature that just works automatically. There's no dice rolling. There are less dice rolling in the game that occurs, and the more things actually work all the time, it's better for you. And this works all the time. So why would you not use it? Of course you're going to use it. Absolutely. Okay, the 5th ability. This is Flurry of Healing and Harm, and this is where things really start to ramp up at level 11 for the Way of the Mercy Monk. You can now mete out Flurry of Comfort and Hurt. When you use your Flurry of Blows, you can replace each of the unarmed strikes with the use of your Hand of Healing, without spending key points for those healing. Okay? No key points. You're only using it, okay, 1 key point for the flurry of blows. So that's really important. In addition, when you make an unarmed strike with flurry of blows, you can use your hand of harm with that strike without spending a key point for the hand of harm. You can still only use hand of harm once per turn. So it's making the use of your key points less important. You can now use 1 key point to heal twice in a bonus action. What class can do that? You name me a class that can actually heal somebody twice. You can punch more than one individual if you wanted to apply your healing hand, okay? It's not really like you're punching them. I guess it's more like you're touching them in an appropriate way, okay? But you can do that as a bonus action, and you can do it twice. Now, every round, you're going to use 1 key point for your flurry of blows and use your hand of harm. That's probably going to be your go-to at that level, just about every single time you get the opportunity to do so. Okay, makes a lot of sense. I would do it. Why wouldn't you do that? Okay, the last feature, which I know a few people looked at and thought, well, it's a capstone feature and it's a long way off, but, what's the big deal? So Hand of Ultimate Mercy, you get this at level 17. Your mastery of life energy opens the doors to ultimate mercy. As an action, you can touch the corpse of a creature that died within the past 24 hours and expend 5 key points. The creature then returns to life, regaining a number of hit points equal to 4d10 plus your wisdom modifier. If the creature died while subjected to any of the following conditions, it revives them with them removed. So you can get rid of the blind, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, and stunned conditions if they had them when they died. Of course, usually we don't apply those sorts of things when somebody comes back to life anyway. That's what I do as a dungeon master. I don't know what other people do, but I don't see that there was too much to worry about here. But it does actually stipulate that just in case a dungeon master says, no, you've got these conditions when you come back to life. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. I'm fine with that. Now, let's break down what we've got here, because it's actually really important to sort of stipulate some of the things that it says and doesn't say. Guess what? You can now bring back an NPC or non-player character that is dead with important information. So it actually has a reasonable use. At higher levels, I know either you have a game where your players' characters never die, or you have a game where there's constantly death taking place because you're playing at such a high level and you're dealing with such nasty threats. It really depends on the type of dungeon master you're playing with. If you're playing Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League, a lot of those battles will be extremely difficult, okay? Particularly if you're playing in something like the Epics. They are not easy battles to deal with. So, bringing somebody back to life, 5 key points, it's a pretty good deal. You can now use this ability in a battle or outside of combat. It doesn't stipulate that it has to be in combat. So outside of combat, it could be used. It's actually better than the Raise Dead spell or the Resurrection spell because it's an action to use the thing. It imposes no penalties. It uses no materials whatsoever. It has no components to it other than the touch. So it's pretty good. It's in fact better than Revivify and Reincarnate because there are no material components required whatsoever. There's a couple of other features to this ability that I think a few people have failed to realize. There's no mention in this ability of failing to bring the creature back to life. Often when you look at some of the spells that the other classes are casting, there's a stipulation that the creature only comes back to life if it wants to come back to life. Well, you can now force a creature to come back to life with this thing. They don't have a choice. There's no stipulation there. Or you can also see there's no mention that you have to have all the body parts there. So that means if somebody's lost their brain, lost an arm, lost a leg, a hand, the heart's been pulled out or something horrible like that, you can still bring them back to life. Now, I've had a discussion with one of my friends and they said, well, yeah, you'd bring them back to life, but because they don't have the body part, they would just die again. But I don't think that was the intention. In terms of rules as intended, I think it's probably right within that parameter. I think that's going to work fine. And as raw, it's certainly within raw as far as I can tell. The recently dead creatures are going to regain hit points, okay? A lot more hit points than something like Raise Dead or Revivify. And that's actually really important. A lot of the Raise Dead or Resurrection spells that you use, apart from 2 that I know of, they actually impose penalties on the character when they come back from death. And that is a bit of a drag if you're playing in any game. Because, of course, you've then got to wait the appropriate, 4 days before you finally get rid of all of those penalties. Because you get like a -4 to any D20 roll, essentially, which is a drag, right? This monk is now the new cleric. It's your better choice, certainly for bringing somebody back to life, but even trying to heal somebody, and certainly to get rid of conditions. A lot of the conditions you can get rid of are duplicating spells that are actually, use up spell slots. One key point is easier to get back than a spell slot. You've got to wait like a whole day and have a long rest to get back your spell slots. But with a key point, it's a short rest and you can just keep going. But the other thing is, those conditions that you remove, they're not dependent. They're not really dependent on key points. Okay? They just work all the time. This is one of the great things about a class that doesn't rely on rolling a dice to actually have a feature work. So the Way of the Mercy Monk doesn't use very many hit key points. You'll notice that actually the further through the class you get, the more efficient it becomes at conserving key points for any monk subclass. In comparison to other monk classes, you actually burn quite a lot of key points. So now you should use more of your monk key-powered features in the game, simply because you're not going to use very many with this particular subclass, so you might as well. Using Stunning Strike every turn after a level 11, so when you get to about a level 11, when you get the Flurry of Healing and Harm, then it makes more sense to use your Stunning Strike every turn after level 11 with your Flurry of Healing and Harm feature. It's a practical strategy now. You could actually do this, as in most battles, most battles are like 3 or 4 rounds, then they end. Then your group is then going to try to take a short rest. You take a short rest, you get all of your key points back, and away you go. And also to remember that if you are striking a creature that is resistant or immune, more likely immune to the poison condition, then frankly, you don't need to worry about that. That's why you can strike multiple creatures and divvy out the poison condition, or go with the Stunning Strike and stun them. So it actually gives you a lot of versatility in terms of playing the game. You want to take short rests as often as you possibly can, after every battle in most cases if possible. This is what you really want to go for, and I'm sure most players are trying to do that already. I'd also like to point out that Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League sessions are usually about 2 to 4 hours. They're quite short. There's usually very few combats in those sessions, those adventures, particularly if you're playing something outside of an epic. So therefore, in all likelihood, you will be able to burn up all of your key points, take a short rest, and then continue on. And that would be the go-to with a monk of this nature. And you'll be able to do a lot more than you've ever been able to do with any monk, simply because it conserves so many of those key points. Now, I'm hoping this was useful to you and you found it helpful in some way. If it did, fantastic. I have more videos on the subclasses. I've got another one on how to deal with the Path of the Beast Barbarian and how to exploit that in your game and use it in your game. I have a whole bunch of videos for Dungeon Masters on some of the Dungeon Master tools and Tasha's. If you're not interested in that sort of thing, that's all right. I have hundreds of videos for players and Dungeon Masters covering every aspect of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm sure you'll find something useful. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can do that through my Patreon page. I've got an Amazon affiliate link down in the description. I also have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos. You can just watch my videos, that's fine. If that's not something you can do, just watch my videos, that's all good. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos if you liked what I just did. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. We are going to have a discussion because we should. I actually really like this monk. Why is it that I like this monk? Because it's actually very focused on combat, but you've got a few features that can be used outside of combat. I've always sort of gravitated towards the Kung Fu movies. I really enjoyed watching Jet Li and Wong Fei Hong. I enjoyed watching Jackie Chan, and it really does feel a lot more like an Eastern monk rather than, you know, a Western monk, which would be, God knows what that would be, frankly. Is that Chuck Norris? Not that I don't dislike Chuck Norris, don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of Chuck Norris as well. Okay, so let's have a look through here pretty quickly. Make sure I say hi to everybody. Blah, 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 blah. Don't invite your DM or it's ruined. Well, I mean, frankly, I think you're going to have to accept that, you know, Dungeon Masters are going to probably make alterations to these subclasses. What I like about the subclass is it's not really just about dealing damage. It actually does a lot of other things. It feels very much like a healer, and that's what it is. It's a physician in many cases. You're not really punching somebody to heal them or punching them to get rid of conditions or disease or bringing them back to life, although I suppose you could say, yes, that's what I'm doing. You are essentially touching them in an appropriate way to bring them some sort of healing feature. And I actually like that. It's probably a subclass I would potentially allow in my game, okay? Because it's just like having a class that is a cleric. It just does it a lot better. And frankly, this monk does a lot of things that are clericy, bardy, or healing wise better than other subclasses or classes, which is a bit odd, but I've always preferred things that work rather than require too many dice rolls. And I actually don't have too much of an issue, but I am biased towards the monk, okay? And I know one of my players is going to spot this video and say, okay, Fred, you said it, can we play it? We'll see how we go with that. Anyway, moving along here. Fender, hi Fender, how's it going? Thank you for becoming a patron, Fender. I did notice, sorry it took so long to get back to you. Okay, what else have we got here? The drama, the untamed comes to mind. Does it really? See drama, the untamed. I don't know. Do I believe that? I don't know that I think it's a super. I mean, a lot of the subclasses in Tasha's do feel like they are superheroes, and certainly it is very much a superhero as such. I think the thing to remember is that this particular subclass is it's actually pretty good with another bunch of people, you know, with another bunch of characters. It actually benefits them quite a lot. Not as much as some of the other subclasses, but the fact that you can heal them, get rid of conditions, okay, bring them back to life. Yep. So yeah, I guess that's like. Is it Batman? I don't feel like it's Batman. I suppose you could write it as being Batman if that's what you were trying to do, is you want to be Batman and you want to use this subclass to represent that, because Batman tends to hit things hard. So yeah, I suppose you could do it. Hi Matt, how's it going? All right, what's this message? Okay, here. So Talon has just pointed out that Ki is Japanese and Chi is Chinese. Yes, but I would say that the monk is far more influenced by Chinese culture than it is by Japanese culture. And therefore, I tend to try calling it Chi rather than Ki. But whatever, it's all right. I thank you for the clarification. Okay, Matt, what do you got here? Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying that this is the best monk or monk subclass there is, but it's only the best subclass for you if you really want to be sort of like a combat medic, as Sheila has pointed out. It is very much a combat medic, and it does that really well. Yeah, but you know, Matt, you're not necessarily hitting them to unblind them. As I said, you can just say I'm touching them. You know, that's all it needs to be. Hand of Ultimate Mercy is ridiculous. Well, okay, so Hand of Ultimate Mercy is incredible. I mean, it's a level 17 feature, and essentially when you get it, you're better at bringing somebody back to life than anybody else. So I'll give you that. So yes, Sheila, you're right. It is ridiculous. Absolutely. If you look at how it's structured, and I spent a lot of time with the spells, looking at the feature and looking at the spells and thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't consider that. I didn't consider that. My friend Simon did point out a lot of these factors, like, you know, gosh, you can bring somebody back to life and you don't have to worry about it failing. They are going to come back to life no matter what. There's nothing in there that's going to restrict that. So I have to say thank you, Simon. You spent a lot of time with me doing this, and it was really helpful. Dave's, how's it going? With the combination of healing, damage, and monk being close combat class, I see some limitations here as well. However, imagine two monk team up here. So what I haven't gone over and talked that much about is the fact that because this monk has a whole lot of really good features, you're not always going to need to do healing or remove conditions or impart a condition. But the extra damage from the Flurry of Healing and Harm, or the Hand of Harm feature, is really good. It conserves so much ki that you can use a lot of the other generic features that are available to a monk, rather than burning through them all using all of your subclass features. Okay, so that means everything in the player's handbook that monks normally get anyway, you can use them because you're not burning out. A lot of monks use a lot of ki for their features. And as you get higher and higher in level and you got more and more key points, I remember many occasions where my players didn't use up all of their ki. Okay, they still had a pool or resource there that they could have used if they had wanted to, but they didn't because they were worried that they needed to have them later on. And this is one class where you can just go to town and just spend it, and you'll be fine. Matt, what do you got here? Too bad the monk can't touch himself to save his own life. That's probably the only problem you will have. This monk is not unkillable, okay? But I would also like to point out the standard features that the monk gets, and they still get them, all right? It's just a subclass. So if we go to the player's handbook, monks are actually really hard to kill, okay? They're really, really tough to kill. I know because on many occasions I had a monk player who played from level 1 through to level 20, and he would go out of his way to see if he could get his character killed. And so I had the opportunity to test that theory, and I can assure you that they are very difficult to kill. And why? Evasion, deflect missiles. You've still got access to all of them. You still got your slow falling, okay? You still got your patient defense, step of the wind. All those features are still there. Purity of body, stillness of mind. It goes on, okay? You've still got all of that stuff available to you, even though you've got the subclass. So monks are pretty hard to kill. I've always struggled to do so at higher levels. Once they get evasion, it's like between deflect missile and having that evasion, there's not much you can do to a monk unless they put themselves in a really, really stupid situation. And that does happen sometimes. Okay, working our way through here. Yeah, well, yes, that's right. Dave's right. Dave's got it there. It's about preventing monks making really bad decisions, because monk players may very well test the waters to see just what they can get away with. I know my player playing the monk did, and I've seen that happen a few times. I even found that when I was playing a monk, once you get to a certain point, it's pretty hard to actually get taken out. Isn't this resurrection thing a bit too easy? Whoops, dead. Monk, please. Poof. Well, absolutely. I would say it is. But see, I've never been married to the fact that Dave's, my view on character death is, I guess, a little bit different to some people. I think that character death should not be taken away from the game. But neither do I think that the Dungeon Master determines whether a character continues playing because they died or not. Okay, I always leave it to my players to decide, are you going to make a new character, or do you want to keep playing this character? If you can't bring the character back to life using a spell or some other feature, then you're going to negotiate with me, and we'll think up a way that you'll bring the character back. And then I build in a story consequence that they work through to get rid of whatever complication I have attached to it. So I don't really have an issue. I'm happy for characters to have death and perish, but I'm quite happy for them to also come back to life. I'm not sort of married to that, because trust me, I've been able to find ways of challenging my players and scaring them without their characters dying. Okay, that doesn't need to be the only source of, I guess, fear for what's going on in the game. And I don't also really consider Dungeons and Dragons a true game of skill. Chess is a true game of skill. Dungeons and Dragons is a game of gambling. Okay. All right. Moving on. It is a capstone. Many people will never ever get anywhere near level 17. Okay, as a monk. Most people tend to multi-class once they get to higher levels. They're usually multi-classed by the time you get to character level 17. So it's very rare that they have a true dedicated monk. Okay, what else we got here? Dave's. I think I'd still have some kind of dice roll as it brings someone back from the dead. Maybe, yep. Well, as a dungeon master, you can always incorporate that sort of thing. But see, like I said, I don't worry about them coming back to life because the character died. If it's based on me, I would have a complication come into play, and it's something they work through. It's got a story to it, and therefore it pushes the story forward rather than holds everything back. The traditional, when you think about the traditional hero, and it's a lot of what's going on in Dungeons and Dragons is people trying to eke out or escape from the real world, right? And they want to be like that hero. And the traditional hero often dies and does come back to life, or comes to the point of near death and rises up from that. So I don't have an issue with that actually, but you can modify and change that if you're a dungeon master. In Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League, that's really not going to be an option. And you're going to have to play by whatever's in the book, and that's that. Yeah. Okay, Fred. I know that Tasha's not going to be in your campaign. I'm totally aware. It isn't in actually my campaign at this present time. I'm still trying to work my head around it. Yeah, okay, I suppose, yes. Kung Fu, the legend continues. Um, I did actually watch Fist of Legend a couple of days ago, and I think that's a slightly different story, but I still liked the idea behind it because his master was also sort of a teacher, and there was sort of an element of um, healing. I mean, he puts his own limb back into its socket. I thought that was sort of, you know, this is why I say it's more Eastern than Japanese, because a lot of Kung Fu and the study around that would teach you how to fight, but also teach you how to heal from the injuries you suffered. So that's a very different focus to Japanese martial arts like karate. And I know this because I was studying Japanese karate, and the focus is not really about healing your body, whereas there's a very strong element of that in Kung Fu. And you can't count Tiger Balm and Anti-Flam and Arnica as a remedy for the Japanese culture. Yeah, everybody uses that. Okay. Yeah, apparently, yeah, that's right. Mr. Hubbard will not be having the Mercy Monk. I kind of understand that. I still like the monk though. Now, would the Mercy Monk really be great with the Peace Domain Cleric? Oh gosh, I just realised which domain you're talking about. This is the one that was used to be called the Love Domain. Got changed the peace. Yeah, the peace. Gosh, that peace cleric is a piece of work, but so is the Twilight domain. That's a piece of work as well. So yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of subclasses and Tashas that have incredibly effective and powerful level 1 and level 3 features, or even level 2 features. So yeah, I can understand it completely. Yep, you can do that. But you know, I always found that combining a cleric with some other class actually worked pretty well. And even, you know, you pick the right ones, but even combining the wizard with some other, you know, martial class can work really well as, you know, I've always found that was quite useful in my game. But the monk, yeah, multi-classing that into what would you be looking for? Well, wisdom kind of makes a lot of sense because, you know, so something like your druid, your cleric, those are all sort of very wisdom based. So it makes a lot of sense. You don't have to worry about sort of spreading your ability scores over too broad a range, and that's something we want to avoid because it's hard to sort of get the numbers you want. I just need another drink of water, sorry about that. Oh, okay, all right, so Days, what do you got here? I just had to double check the tradition name, but in one of my campaigns I have a Tiefling Mercy Monk. She favoured it as her hellish powers to do the damage, and she tries to control it to heal. Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. What do you got here, Fender? What's up? Fred, this is one of the first channels I have been checking since I started DMing years ago. It's only fair to give some back while, yeah, hey, look, thank you very much, Fender. So, while we're going through this, I know a few of you who watch my channel a lot will be wondering why I'm doing shorts. And I've noticed a few people have unsubscribed because of the shorts. And I will explain to you that a lot of the short videos are a product of me testing, okay? I selected old topics that I knew was sort of, you know, and I took the piss out of them, okay? Ultimately, Chris Pine being in a Dungeons and Dragons movie, I had to take the piss out of that. I really did. I like Chris Pine, but I did have to take a piss out of it. I definitely wanted to sort of talk about the Dragonlance because, look, in a few days, in about a week's time, we're probably going to be told that there is a Dragonlance Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting coming out. Okay? That's what I think the new book is going to be. I think that's a no-brainer. And the novels will come out as well. I think that's all tied to that. Absolutely. So I covered those. But my intention is actually to release video content that's very short, like 1 minute, and it would be in vertical, but I'm not using vertical, I'm using box. And I want to give you the kind of advice that players and dungeon masters might want or need, but wouldn't make a full-blown video. Okay, I've done this in the past. When I first started my channel, I made very short videos on the mechanics of Dungeons & Dragons 5e. But this particular thing, since YouTube is actually pushing it out there, I'm going to use that. That means I'm going to do really short video on advice for players and very short videos for dungeon masters as well. And I'm going to use the shorts format. That's why I'm doing those. So what you're getting is not the actual content, it's me testing stuff, okay? And I'll continue to test until I'm ready to release what I want. I'm also going to do the mechanics of Dungeons & Dragons 5e and a lot of the subclasses. So that means getting out miniatures and dice and maps and doing a short form video on how to use maybe a key feature that I can do in 1 minute. So I can't cover everything, but I can do a lot of it. And the intention behind that is that I then direct people to the longer form content if they're ready or want that. Okay? So don't get discouraged when you start seeing the shorts videos coming up, because they're not all going to be what they are right now. There's going to be quite a wide range as I throw out my net and test stuff. Thank you, Joe, for the $5 super chat, by the way. Okay. All right, I've blamed it. Let's continue going through the chat and responding to people. If you do have a question and you're worried I might miss it, make sure to put #question. Otherwise, I could miss it. It's always a good idea. I know there's a few people in the room, but I think we'll get to the bottom of this before I run out of time. But I will just quickly type in #question dot whoops dot please. Oh, did I spell it right? No, I didn't. I'm pressing my buttons too quickly. Okay. All right. Let's try that now. Is it in? Okay. It's in. So let's let people know. Like, let's work our way through here. So I think the mask is very much about role play. I was thinking about the mask and thinking, well, what can you do with the mask? And I thought, well, actually deceiving somebody and intimidating somebody is probably a go-to for the mask. In terms of finding a way, and you know how I am about Dungeons & Dragons adventuring gear. I believe in using Dungeons & Dragons adventuring gear in smart and clever ways. That's why I made videos on the topic. So I thought, well, what can we do with that mask? Because right now it just seems like it's flavor and nothing else. So that's what I would suggest to you guys, is that absolutely consider using it to deceive your enemies and intimidate them. Okay? Fendar, about the capstone, I don't think it's broken. 5 key points is proportionally a higher cost than, say, some of the spell slots needed for... No, not really, Fendar. I think you'll find that it's absolutely, considering you got 17 key points when you finally get this ability, 5 key points to bring somebody back to life, and you only need to take a short rest. So if you blow all those 17 key points on a battle and somebody's dead, well, you've got plenty of time because you've got 24 hours. You take a short rest, you get all your 17 key points back, and then you just bring them back to life outside of combat. So it's not a big deal. So it's definitely broken as, and it's definitely better than casting a spell, because like I said, casting spells, you have to take a long rest to get them all back. How many short rests can you take in any given day? Well, you can take as many short rests as you can fit, okay? So you do some adventuring, you have a battle, you take a short rest. It is quite conceivable, and I've had games that have wound up with this happening. You could wind up with close to 10, if not more, short rests in any kind of given adventuring day. They don't have to use the hit dice every single time. Okay? Warlocks will, anybody playing a warlock will always be trying to take a short rest after every engagement because they only have a very small number of spell slots to use. Okay? They are so dependent on cantrips and Eldritch Blast and the invocations. So yeah, it's definitely broken as, but I don't actually have a problem with that. Frankly, it's all right with me. Matt, oh yes, the mask. doesn't that raven mask? It looks weird. I guess you could say yes, Rom. I guess it could be indicative of the Raven Queen. But I don't really like that. I picked out a scene from one of Jet Li's movies, and he's got like an eagle mask that's partly pulled up. And I wanted to show you that because I think that's exactly where they got the idea from that movie. And it's actually Claws of Steel is a spoof on the Wong Fei Hong story, okay? Or should I say, not so much that story, but on the Once Upon a Time in China movies. And of course, the first one's always the best one. So I think that's where they got that from, if you were wondering. Okay, moving through here. Yeah, well, I think the word is, when you say broken, that, you know, people say, well, if it's broken, we should remove it. It is definitely broken. It's certainly much more powerful than anybody else, so that's broken. But then again, you know, the wizard, I love playing wizards. I love playing monks, I love playing wizards, but hands down, you don't have to pick a particular subclass for the wizard. And the wizard is broken. It's just hands down better at doing everything than everybody else. Because you can pretty much solve all problems with a wizard. You have enough spells in your spell block, you can pretty much do anything. That's why I like playing wizards. But, you know, doesn't mean that it's going to come out of the game. All right, moving along here. The mask opens up the religion point in D&D, which is often quite underused. Well, I suppose you could have a focus on that. And if you wanted to be a plague doctor, you could be a plague doctor. But yeah, for me, you know, yeah, not all karate is the same, and you're very much that's true, Talon Black. No, I think you'll find, give it, I believe it be the 12th of January 2021, and they're probably going to announce that the novels are coming and that we're getting a settings book for Dragonlance. I'm pretty sure, you can tell me if I'm wrong when we get there, but absolutely think you're going to get that, okay? And I have been wrong on some occasions, but usually I've found that I have not been wrong, just people don't believe me. Okay, people don't believe me that Tasha's Cauldron to Everything is Dungeons and Dragons 5.5, and that it will fundamentally change the game of Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and it absolutely will. And I was really good to see that. Is it Dungeon Craft, Professor Dungeon Master, whatever the heck he calls himself, had that same message to say. Because people don't believe me, but it absolutely is going to change the way the game is played, which is why I'm doing these videos. If anybody has followed me for any number of years, you know I do not do videos when on a particular book and do a lot of different series or follow-up videos, okay? The only reason I'm doing it for this book is it's having such a huge effect on the game, and I know people need to know what's going on. Now, if I tell this stuff to you as a player, your dungeon masters might know about it as well, and so they'll be aware and not be surprised when it comes up. And it will definitely, all those things I talked about are going to come up for sure. Sage Advice doesn't have very much on it, by the way, for those of you who are wondering, where is the Sage Advice information? So far, not very much has come out. Okay, we're moving on to the way. I just need another drink. Just hang on. Moving from the Dungeons and Dragons mug to the Star Wars Mandalorian. Okay. Yeah, they did. That's right. They kissed and made up. And I made a very short video on the fact that they did kiss and make up. Hi, John. How's it going? It's good to see you. Well, good to hear from you. I would love to see a decent D&D movie, but not holding my breath. Look, I actually plan to do a short on the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I will probably be taking the piss out of that. So don't get upset when that happens. I would like to see a really good Dungeons and Dragons movie. I don't think you're going to get what you're expecting from this. Okay, I think the 2022 movie is going to be a different animal. From everything that I can see being discussed, I think it's not going to be what you expect. Okay, but there's always a possibility that it will be better than what we've had before, because the other ones were pretty bad. What do you got here, Matt? Yeah, well, I don't think it's nailed down in concrete. I don't think Chris Pine is nailed down to the movie just yet. Chris Pine, to be fair, this is an actor who's got pretty gutsy. He wound up being the male sort of lead in a female-driven movie such as Wonder Woman, where he's not really the main focus. And he had, he was able to deal with that. He's played Captain Kirk in Star Trek, and to actually follow on from Star Trek, considering the legacy that it's left behind, these are hard shoes to fill. He's done some dramas. They're actually pretty good. He did one with Denzel Washington with a train. I can't remember what it's called. But it's actually a pretty good movie, and he actually does a pretty good job in it. So I don't think he's a bad actor. It's just whether the movie is going to be constructed in a way that makes sense. Remember, a lot of people come into play. Anyway, moving along here. Go watch Hawk the Slayer. It's a riot. Well, yes, I think I remember Hawk the Slayer, but there are a few others. Instead of the film, I think I'd rather rewatch the 80s cartoon again, to be honest. So, Dave's, there's actually supposed to be a live-action Dungeons & Dragons TV series coming out. They're looking at multiple ideas. I'm going to do a little video on that. Again, I'll be taking the piss out of it, because that's what I do, okay? If I get the opportunity and there's a topic that is worthy of throwing ridicule on in some way, in a sort of a dry sense, because I'm a pretty dry kind of person, I'll probably do that, and that's definitely coming. And I've had a few ideas about what you might likely see in terms of that. I do not think you're ever going to see the 80s cartoon, Dungeons & Dragons cartoon come back, for those of you who are wondering. I think that's very unlikely. Fender, question. What are your thoughts on giving class levels to monsters as the DMG says? I think it's going to create a whole lot of hassle for you. Frankly, you can do it, but it's not very easy. I feel like they are too clunky. Yes, absolutely. And I want to use character classes as a DM. So one of the things I would suggest to you is it's actually better to rip out some of the features from other monsters and put them into your monsters, if you're going to make modifications like that, or to take a class feature and just port over the class feature rather than porting over the entire class level. Don't give the whole monster a class level. Just take the class feature you want, okay, and use that. That's much easier to do. Other than that, I mean, I have done videos on modifying your monsters and how to do that. There's quite a few of them. I did one on the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I've done one on modifying monsters, but not changing challenge rating, because challenge rating is really not a very good measure anyway. There's a lot of ways of doing that. The Dungeon Master is full of different monster features you can just port over to any monster that already pre-exists. Or you can make it from scratch. Making from scratch sounds easy, but it ain't that easy sometimes. Okay, what do you got here, Talon? You can't use the power again until you have a long rest. Yeah, I mean, usually if you're playing a caster and you're at a high enough level to raise somebody from the dead, you're only going to use that once, and then you're going to take a long rest anyway. So I don't think that's a really big deal. You actually have to wait for it much longer than, as a monk, than you would as a cleric or a bard or a druid to use their features that bring people back to life. So, I don't think it's unfair to leave it in the game. In terms of how it compares to a cleric at level 17 and their ability to bring somebody back to life, It is definitely broken. It's definitely broken. It's all right. Does anybody ever remember the penalties to coming back from the dead anyway? That -4 penalty that you have to your 20-sided dice rolls. Does anybody ever remember to actually put those in place? I bet you forget about them half the time. And then, you're waiting for another long rest, and it goes over 3 days, and unless you've got downtime, you never do it anyway. So I don't think it's a big issue. Okay, Overboard DM. Now, Joe runs a channel, it's Overboard DM, on miniatures, terrain, and just general reviews. Does a lot of good stuff. You should go check him out. Does stuff that a lot of people don't cover. Okay, Tasha's isn't allowed at my table. Every other book is okay though. Yep. So I guess Joe, since that's going to be probably the go-to for most home games, but not Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League, I want to point out some of the issues with these classes. But for me, this particular monk is frankly only a problem if they're able to short rest a lot. If you have running battles, or you're working with the concept that they're not going to be able to take short rests, you really don't need to worry too much about it. And the weird thing is that actually, in this case, healing damage to the other players is probably more efficient than doing damage, simply because you don't have to worry about hitting the target. You can just use it. So if you want to mitigate damage, so I would say, yeah, they're definitely going to get a big benefit to it. But I don't feel like this is obscene in terms of a subclass. So there is a good chance that I will allow it in my game. And I will let you know if it doesn't work out, for sure. Okay, Eddie. That one with the Jeremy Irons, was that bad? Laugh out loud. Yeah, that was pretty bad. The second movie was... I think the second movie was slightly better, but it had a much smaller budget. I think the idea behind it was a little bit better. The third movie was odd. Yes, I absolutely agree, Eddie. Absolutely. Yep, you're right. You mean Unstoppable. That's right. Denzel Washington, The Train, and Chris Pine. Yep, that's right. Unstoppable. That's what it was called. Every time I keep trying to remember the name of that movie, all I could think of was Stop. And I was like, no, it can't be Stop. There's something going on here. Okay, moving along through here. You go ahead and take the piss out of all that. Yeah, I'm going to be taking the piss out of a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to produce educational shorts, because I will. You will see them come through. For those people who showed up for my channel for real content and didn't really want it to be entertainment or just D&D news or anything like that, you will get educational content. It's going to come. Don't worry. It'll just be much more, I guess, broken down. To be useful, it means I need to leave a lot of stuff out. So that means you get a lot more of them. Okay. Okay, what else have we got here? I have them already. Yeah, loads. Yeah, I already have the cartoon, the D&D cartoon series on DVD. And I'm really glad that I do have them, because they are fun. They're still fun. There are a lot of elements to it that I really disliked. But as I watched it, I was thinking, it's actually far more true, the cartoon, to original Dungeons and Dragons, where you avoid combat and you have to come up with a clever idea to solve your problems. It would be lovely to be able to apply that to the modern game of Dungeons and Dragons 5e. I think it might be a bit difficult. I think you might have to go OSR to actually make that work. There's a high probability you will see OSR material at some point on my channel. For those of you who are wondering, that's very much likely to happen. Everyone has watched it. Yep. what are we doing here? She's a tea leaf too. I'm not sure what that means. You lost me there. Okay, all right. So time is up. Time is up. We have discussed everything I needed to discuss. For those of you who hung around, the 12th of January, there's going to be a release, some good news about the new book, and trust me, I'm pretty sure you'll be quite surprised about what they're about to tell you. So hang in for that. It's going to be fun. I'm sure of it. So thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for everybody, all of my patrons. Thank you for everybody who hung in for such a long live stream. I know it's an hour and it takes a long time to get through all of this. I know this is not necessarily the type of content people are used to seeing on my channel. And I can understand if you are turned off by some of this, but trust me, there is a rationale behind everything that I do, even if you don't fully understand it just yet. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbors. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.